So we talked a little bit ago about how all the circuit connections are actually printed inside this little board, and you can see dark lines running around. Hopefully, see those darker raised areas running around. Those are making connections around the board, and that's important. Now, this next set of resistors, the connections are later on going to be made actually above all the other components, which does leave them exposed to the potential for short, but if we design this right, it shouldn't short out and it should be fairly stable. So these are two of the 1M jobs, and we are going to take them and we're going to fold them in a special way. So instead of them laying in the circuit board like they have been laying, we're actually going to reshape them from, instead of just going in, we're going to take our round pliers here and we're going to bend them like this. Now, what that's just done is provided that when it goes in the circuit board, it's actually going to be lifted up above. So this little guy is going in R15. We're going to stick one end in and the other end in, and it's going to end up actually looking like that. And that leaves this leg of the component here sticking up above everything so that we can make that connection later on. So I'm just going to snug him up right there and then bend the leads like always. We've got one more to do that same thing with. We're just going to take and bend them nice and tight. Again, this is kind of the shape we're shooting for right now. And this is going in R12. Get it down nice and snug. And there's that one sticking up. So now you've got those two right there. And then we need to clip him in and do the actual solder. Ooh, it slipped out. Okay, so I always like to just get the hardest ones out of the way first. So I'm going to start with this one over here. Okay. Have to be a little more straight up now than sideways as we have been on some of the others, because we're starting to get a lot of other joints around here. And like that one, just about connected to the other joints. I'm using my eyes really carefully right now. Trying to melt that back off. And I have landed myself in a place where I accidentally connected two solder joints. So here is a solder sucker. I've loaded it by pulling down on this. All I'm going to do is heat that solder right there till it turns nice and liquidy. And then while it's liquidy, boom, press the little button on the side. Now what that did is that actually sucked up that excess solder that was hot, and you can see it come out. Right there on my finger. Right there. You can see it. There's that solder We don't want that solder anymore. So that is how I fix a boo-boo. And I'm just gonna go back in and tip that up just a little bit. That did remove the excess that I needed it to. If it hadn't have, I would have gone back in, beautiful, and solder sucked again. So now you see how to fix a mistake, which might means that you have to go in. I luckily didn't mess up the solder connection that was already there. So if I had, you would have to do both of them again, but I only did the one, and the solder sucking fixed it. So there you go. Now to trim those two to size. So when I was working up here in these tight little bits, that's where I ran into the issues with the ones going together, but they're good now. And I can touch them on the top and kind of wiggle them. And touch this one over here, kind of wiggle it. They're both tight. Completed step.